Terry, you can go ahead and call for a roll call for attendance.
Maybe I'll call to order.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to call to order Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission meeting for September 21st, 2020. If I could ask Terry to call the roll of the commission.
Yeah. Okay, aloha. Josh Kaakua.
Here.
Suzanne Case.
Here.
Okulani Holt.
Here.
Carmen Hulu Lindsey.
Here.
Samalu Mataafa.
Here.
Michelle Piscaya.
Here. Aloha.
So we are, for those who are joining us, I guess by the public, we have our agenda posted. We're going to go through some of the, I'm going to have ED just go through some of the agenda items to be discussed. And then we're going to invite comment from the community before the commission, kind of goes through each agenda item. Yeah.
Okay, so the agenda items that we'll be discussing today is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting on November 21st, 2019. We will then do a review and approve of our KIRC operating budget for FY21. Authorize the executive director to solicit, select, and award a base camp operating contract. Elections of a vice chair, and then review and approve the legislative positions for the 2021 session. And other than that, will be updates from the executive director and from the different programs.
And are there any other housekeeping items we want to let people know? Maybe from either Maggie or KIRC staff about how people should, if they have questions, how do they, I guess, participate?
If you guys do have questions, I think the best way would be to type them in the chat. We have it open next to the viewing window right here, so I can see them as they come up. And then when there's breaks in the person talking, I can address them if that works for everybody.
Okay, we're gonna move along into approval of minutes. Our last meeting was in November 2019. I'd like to give the commission a few moments to go through, and if you have comment or correction, you can just like wave or put one of those reaction signs up, or just and then unmute and provide comment and discussion. Is there any discussion on our minutes of our last meeting? If not, could I get a motion for approval?
I move to accept and approve the minutes of November 21st, 2019. Commissioner Pescaya.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mataafa. So, Mike, do you want me to call for a vote, or the staff's going to call for a vote, like a roll? Sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry, I muted myself to keep the noise down. You can call for the vote, and then Terry will then do the roll call.
Okay, we're calling for the vote approval of the minutes.
Okay. Suzanne Case. Oh, yeah,
They can, okay. Yeah, I can unmute them over here at my time. No.
Aye.
Connie Holt,
Approved.
Carmen Hulu Lindsey,
Aye.
Salmalu Mataafa,
Aye.
Michelle Piscaya,
Aye.
and Josh Kaakua.
Aye. Motion carries. At this time, we're going to, before we get to our action items, we're gonna allow any public comment. If none, we're going to move into action item A, review and approve fiscal year 21 KIRK operating budget.
Okay, Maggie, I'm gonna try to share screen. Can you undisable? You got it disabled yet?
Oh, no, you should be good. It's set to that one person can share screen at a time. So
It
you
says
should be
host
okay.
disabled participant screen sharing.
Well, it shouldn't be saying that. Here we
I
go.
think you switch it to multiple.
Yeah, I'll just let everybody do it.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Okay. Let me see, make sure you guys can see. So, okay, you guys can see. Make sure we get the right one. Well, let me change again. This is not the one I wanted. How do I unshare it?
You go to stop share down at the bottom. It should say, or I'm sorry, up at the top. On your little Zoom thing, it should say stop share.
I think I'm in a combination of both. Oh, here you
I'll
go.
stop you.
Yeah, stop me. And then let me make sure I pick the right one. Okay, let me try again. One more time. And it should be screen 2. Okay. Share. Okay, you guys should see, okay, there we are. This is our presentation for the FY21 budget. Okay, so let's start with the first slide. Okay, so the recommended motion is to accept a general fund appropriation budget of $983,178.89, and then to approve a trust fund expenditure of $226,746.78. I have a breakdown of how that funding has come about. So, taking a look, we have 4 different sources of funding for the FY21 budget. We have FY21 general funds that were appropriated. Funds were appropriated in the FY21 administration budget, but only the first 2 quarters have been allocated for our use. So we're not entirely sure exactly what the entire FY21 general funds are, but based upon the first quarter's allocation, we think we're on track of what our estimate for the entire budget is. And also looking at the budget that was approved by the governor, we are a subset of LNR 906, which is also includes it's the chair's office, which includes fiscal and personnel, and then the chair's office. So we have a fairly decent idea of what our allocation is going to be. An official operating expenditure plan has not been posted from fiscal yet, so this is more an assumption of what we think our FY21 general funds are going to be. Our FY21 general funds are about 18% less than we got last year. Part of it is that the second year funding for the $100,000 that was added in last year was part of the administration's request, and it was approved by the governor's general message to the legislature, but all supplemental requests in this budget was eliminated at the end of the fiscal year. Also, any vacancy funding, so any positions that we had that were vacant, the funding for those positions were also eliminated from the budget. We have about $27,000 in carryover from the previous fiscal year. We were able to use the last of FY20 money to put it into contracts, specifically for rent for the office and the storage facility and for landscaping work at the boathouse. That way we can carry on the money into the next fiscal year. We're looking at spending about $132,000 and change in trust funds for reimbursable purposes. These are for grant projects that we will be reimbursed for that money. And then we're also looking at about using $93,000 for non-reimbursable trust funds. And that is because at the end of this current fiscal year, the base camp operations and a lot of our field operations have been paid for from CIP money, from the dry land forest CIP award that we got 3 years ago. And we were able to use portions of it to run the base camp in support of building the native forest dryland CIP project. That funding will finally end in April of this year. So starting in April, or actually starting in May, we will be using our own funding for the base camp. So unless we get additional general funds, we'll be required to use trust funds to carry on the base camp operations and some of the field operations. You can see in the graph that in comparison to the previous year, it is overall about 5% less in budget, but an increase in reimbursable trust funds from the previous year. And we do have a significant amount, well, compared to the previous year, of non-reimbursable trust funds. As we break it down by programmatic areas, there is an increase in operations in the budget, and that is because the previous budget did not account for the CIP funding for base camp. Overall, Ocean also has an increase because they have a grant program with marine debris cleanup and a coastal restoration, or actually a grant that they will be expending money for. Restoration is pretty much the same as the previous year, and Commission has a slight increase. They also have a grant program that has to do with the Institute for Library and Museum Science. Administration is slightly less for our program. You can take a look at the distribution. Personnel, our non-personnel cost is about 33%. Personnel cost is about 2/3 of our budget. So any changes, right now, most of the personnel is being covered by general fund. All the personnel is being covered by general funds. And our non-personnel cost is being covered by some general funds and most of the, and then trust funds and other funding sources. One of the major impacts that we are seeing this year that we didn't have in the previous year was a general fund restriction. Something I talked about at the DLNR administrators meeting. We have always had the UXO position vacant, and one of the purposes has been that the base camp contract has been providing UXO support as part of their contract. And also the vacant position allows us to pay for the current restriction that we have on general fund. So in this graph, on this table, we were appropriated $855,909 for personnel services. That's for salaries. There is currently a 10% restriction on general funds, meaning even though we've been appropriated all this money, we can't touch 10% of it. That means the allocation we have is $770,000, which is less than what we need to pay all the salaries. So therefore, we have to take some of the money from our other operating expenses in general fund to make up the difference between what we're currently allocated and how much we think we're going to need to pay salaries. So that is what the adjustment is. And the adjustment comes from Our other allocation of funding is for other expenses. So these are non-personal expenses. We have appropriation of $213,000, but we have with the 10% restriction, we have an allocation of 191, and then we had to take about almost like $39,000 and move it into personnel to make up the payroll. So our adjustment for other operating expenses is $152,000. That is something, because we don't have any vacancies anymore. So, and that's an issue that I had pointed out to the rest of the administrators, that with no vacancies anymore, we have no vacancy savings. And then that also means that you have to pay the 10% restriction on your payroll from other places to make up the difference. Compared to the previous year, we didn't have to make any adjustments on our payroll services, and we had enough extra funds in the vacancies to make up the final 12% restriction that we had last year. So no adjustments were necessary last year. And then you can also see what our current allotment last year was, about 1.15 million. This year's total allotment is only $962,100,000 for the general funds. Okay. So other than general funds, we have other sources of funding. We have some carryover funding from FY20, about $26,000 for the office and storage leases that we had put aside from the previous year. That is enough money for the first quarter. So we will not have to pay for the first quarter from this year's general fund, but we'll be using leftover general funds from last year. And we also have about 4 months of funding for the boathouse landscaping purchase order that we were able to put away. That's for cutting the grass, clearing the brush, keeping the fire breaks around the building sites down there. Our plan for reimbursable trust funds is about $132,000. It's broken down to $42,000 for update of the virtual museum app that will be reimbursed. $76,000 for marine debris cleanup that is funded by NIFWIF, and then about $14,000 under a marine education pyro grant that's under NOAA, and that all those money will be expended from the trust fund and then will be reimbursed and placed back into the trust fund. For non-reimbursable trust fund, we're projecting about $93,000. 64,000 of that will be this year's portion of the new base camp and communications contract. The communication contract is the radio and microwave link and internet service and the satellite service to Kaho'olawe. About a little bit under 20,000 in Honokanaya supplies. That's all the camp supplies and the work that's doing in there. About $8,000 in vessel operations and about $1,500 for Maui vehicles. That includes fuel, repairs, insurance, and safety checks and such. We have done a projected spending. You can take a look at the chart. General funds allocations for the first quarter, the first 3 months, are lower, and then it jumps up. That's because we're not going to be spending for rent and for the buildings for the first quarter, and then we will be straight line spending for the rest of the year. The general fund carryover, you can see, is applicable for the first 3 months, and then the reimbursable trust fund, we kind of think these are the time periods when we're going to be spending. The blue line is the overall spending for each month. And then as you see at the end of the year, that's when non-reimbursable trust funds will be being applied, when the base camp contract will then be converted to trust funds. And that's our projection for the monthly spending. Impact on the trust fund, we are starting this fiscal year with a balance of about $1.5 million. We estimated $135,000 in grant income. That includes the reimbursement of the trust funds. We are looking at about maybe a little bit under $8,000 in trust fund interest is our estimate. We're estimating about $35,000 in fees and permits collecting. In the previous fiscal year, we collected about $40,000 in fees and permits, and that includes not having an access since February. So we only had 7 months of access last fiscal year, which is equivalent to what we're looking at this year, maybe in a smaller amount. So we are looking at a similar collection to last year and slightly less due to a lesser amount. And then an estimate, a conservative estimate, about $25,000 in giving. That is charitable contributions. Our expected expenditure for the trust fund is about $226,000. That is the reimbursable and non-reimbursable numbers, with a negative net income of about $23,000. So we're projecting the end of fiscal year 21 trust fund balance at $1.4 million. So one of the things that we're looking at is how are we going to survive in the next 2 or 3 bienniums. We already know that the overall tax revenue collections are going to be down. There's already projections that there is going to be less funding next fiscal year and the previous and the following fiscal year. So one of the things we're looking at is how can we survive 2 to 3 biennium cycles, and bienniums are 2-year budgets. So one of the biggest things that we have that is, one of the greatest things that happened to us was that we got $800,000 from the court settlement of the Monsanto lawsuits that were gifted to us into our trust fund. So without those funds, we would not be able to survive the next few years. We will be utilizing those funds in the next few years. We did a Monte Carlo projection utilizing the different levels of operating costs and revenue projections. And what we came up with was we can make, at a 25% reduction in operating costs with a goal of 50% revenue of the operating costs. So whatever the operating cost is, if we can generate 50% of that as reimbursable money, we can make it at least 2 biennium cycles. That's 4 years. We won't be able to make it to 3 biennium, but we're getting very close. That number is a projection of $282,000 a year that we would have to generate in grant revenues. One of the things that we have also done is we have changed the direction of our grants. Most of our grants, we're looking at mostly just getting materials and supplies so they can do projects in the field and maybe increasing manpower. We have changed the direction and including more reimbursement of operating costs as part of our grants in order to make up this target of 50% revenue, at least 50% revenue for our operating costs. So every grant will now include a portion of field operations such as base camp, boat runs, all our sunk costs that we will be spending out of our trust fund. We will try now to get those reimbursed as part of our grants. With a 30% reduction in operating costs and a 50% revenue reimbursement, which is about a $272,000 a year grant return, we will definitely make 2 cycles, and we can actually get the first year of the 3rd biennium, but not make it all the way to the 3rd biennium. So for now, our targets is somewhere between 25 and 30% reduction in the operating costs for the next 2 or 3 years, for the next 4 years at least, for operating for base camp and the field, and a goal of raising somewhere between $280,000 or up to $300,000 a year in reimbursable funds that will go to our trust fund. So we just did this example to show that we do have a plan to try to, our target is to try to make it minimum 2 bienniums on the trust fund without any return, without any general fund increase. We're hoping we can get a general fund increase in at least 4 years. That will solve a lot of these issues, but we do have a backup plan of surviving on the trust fund if we have to. This is it for the slides, but if you take a look, one other thing I want to point out, if you look in your packets, there is a difference in the way we presented the budget. We are now, the budget is now broken up into the different funding sources. Before, we gave you a composite budget of the total dollars for the year, and we were managing in that way. Now we've broken it up into the different funding sources, and we are managing each funding source separately with a separate budget, and that is now rolling up into a larger composite budget. This way we can more accurately and more precisely manage each different funding source to ensure that we do not exceed any of these funding levels that we have projected for us. And if there's any change in our projections, we can make the appropriate adjustment and reallocation as necessary. And that's all. Okay, so I'll just bring it back to the recommended motion again. I'll bring that back to the main slide. And then this is the recommended motion again, to accept the general fund appropriation budget and then to approve the trust fund expenditures. And I'll turn it back to the chair for to call for the question and discussion.
Yep, opening up to the commissioners for comment and questions.
Chair, may I make the motion and then we can discuss?
Yes, do you want to take it in pieces? Yeah, well, maybe I can ask the group. I mean, is there? Well, let's take it in pieces.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the general fund appropriation budget of $983,178.89 for the budget for the fiscal year 21.
So moved. This is Salmalu.
I just made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second, sorry.
Okay. Your call, Chair, for the vote or for discussion.
Is there any discussion or question? Seeing none, roll call for the vote.
Commissioner Case,
We cannot hear.
Carrie, you got to go closer to the mic.
Again.
Commissioner Case,
Aye.
Commissioner Holt,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsey,
Aye.
Commissioner Mataafa,
Aye.
Commissioner Piscaya,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaakua.
Aye. Motion carries.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the trust fund expenditures of $226,746.78 for the budget request year, fiscal year 21.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Holt, second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for discussion?
Chair, this is Salmalu. Commissioner Mataafa.
Yes.
Mike, could you just go back to the where you break down the expenditures for this one more time? I'd just like to see it. If you could share that screen.
Is this the one, the budget compared to previous year?
No, the expenditures for this upcoming that we're about to approve right now.
Okay. I don't think I have it as a slide. It's in your packet. The actual breakdown of all expenditures, yeah.
Do you know where in the packet it is?
It should
Because I have a bunch of tabs open right now, and I'm just trying to figure out where that is.
Okay, it is after 4A. It is after the motion, and it's before the tab for 4B.
It should be the very
It's a
last.
sideways. Yeah.
One second, sorry.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it too, and I can try to put it up.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time finding it right now. One second.
Mikiala has it up in her picture.
It was all in the same file. It's just at the back of the operating budget. So after the first 9 pages of narrative, then it goes, it had the other like attachment at the back.
Okay, I think You guys are now seeing the budget on your screen. Yeah, okay. So this is the
Okay, it is.
breakdown. Yeah, so if you look at your screen, you'll see FY20 and year end, what our year end numbers were. You'll see what the 21 submitted budget, and then you'll see it broken down by FY21 submitted budget in column O is actually the general fund. The P is the carryover from 20. Then there's 21 trust fund reimbursable, 21 trust fund non-reimbursable, and the distribution by program area.
Okay, I got that now. Yeah, sorry, no, I'm opening it on tabs on my computer. I didn't have the packet right in front of me, so
okay.
I finally found it now.
Okay.
So really, we're able to make this work because there's a whole new 800,000 trust fund from the settlement, the Monsanto settlement that we didn't have before. Is that right?
Yes. Well, that's going to carry us at least a couple of years. If we didn't have that settlement funding, we would not be able to last long enough. If we look back at our historical record in getting general funds, it took us at least 2 bienniums worth of effort to get the funding that we had. Went through an audit, went through, just annually influencing, I guess you would say, and to get the addition of converting us into general funds. We think we're going to have to at least last 2 biennium sessions before we see a turnaround in the economy enough that we could increase general funds allotments to ourselves. I mean, that's my own projection, that if we can last at least 2 bienniums, 4 years, without any changes to our general fund, we can make it to the 3rd biennium, and hopefully by the 3rd biennium, there'll be money again. We'll have to see how things go in the next few years with that projection.
I guess another comment and question. Thanks, Mike. I'm always concerned when we tap into the trust fund. We're not sure how much of that we have to carry us forward, or how much we're going to put back in. I heard that the request here is for about 226,000, but we anticipate about 200K in revenue.
Yes.
Through grants and grant income, and
and then 132,000 of that is actually reimbursable. So
okay, so 132 we already have in hand.
Yeah, we're gonna spend it and we'll get it back.
Yeah. So that last 68 is what we're going to be looking for, before May, right?
Yes, and that would come. The bulk of it will come from permit fees, boating, and we do get fishing license fees and trolling license fees, and also for access fees, and then also for donations, and then interest on the trust fund. Mm-hmm. Because we're back at 1.5 million in the trust fund, we should have a better return on interest rates than we had in previous years, because we had such a low balance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they basically take the balance of the trust fund that's not encumbered, they move it into a growth account, and then they feed it back to us at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, other comments and questions? Okay, calling for the vote.
Commissioner Case?
Aye.
Commissioner Holt?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsey?
Aye.
Commissioner Mataafa,
Aye.
Commissioner Paskaya,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaakua.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Moving to action item 4B, to authorize Executive Director to solicit, select, and award Base Camp Operations Management Contract.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. The recommended motion is to authorize the Executive Director to solicit, select, and award a base camp management contract for the period of May 16th, 2021 through May 15th, 2022. And part two is to appoint Commissioner Blank to the Contract Review and Selection Board. Let me try to close the PowerPoint and I'll try to post this up. Okay. If I can get that. Okay, so a little background. The current base camp contract, as I was saying before, has been funded by the Kaho'olawe Dryland Forest CIP project. That project included base camp management services, dryland restoration workforce, communication services, which is the radio communication back and forth, all the different radio, microwave, satellite, area preparation, materials, equipment, supply, planting equipment, materials and supplies for the dryland forest, native plant materials, irrigation supplies, fuel, supplies, materials, and an allowance for the boat repair. In this new scope, what we're going to be looking at is limiting it to just the facility maintenance support, which is the base camp management portion. We will be taking over all the supply costs as we had before. We will be doing all the purchasing for supplies, materials. We are going to leave the food service preparation and the meals with the contractor. It seems to work better to have a dedicated person responsible for procuring the food, storing the food, preparing the food, and then serving it on island. Especially now with our new COVID procedures, it helps that we have a dedicated kitchen staff, a kitchen person that makes sure that we have a very clean kitchen and we do all the sanitary procedures we need to do and all the separation that we need to do for our COVID procedures. We are going to include a small allowance for vessel repair, but we are going to be taking on the cost of vessel repair ourselves, and a small allocation for contingencies just in case something happens. There will be a small contingency within this contract. We will be rewriting the scope of work. The current scope of work for the base camp contract includes a whole laundry list of things. We're going to be shortening it down and cutting it back to just facility management, meal services, and then the meals itself. And then the contingencies, 2 small contingencies for vessel repair and for other contingency. The vessel repair contingency is to handle quick repair that would take longer than our procurement process would allow. We have found in the past that it is very difficult to find compliant contractors on Maui. So we'll have the contractor do all the screening and work themselves and then provide the maintenance for those vessel repairs. But it's going to be just small parts of it. We will be taking on most of the work ourselves or contracting it directly from the KIRC. Let's see. Our goal is to have a reduced base camp operation. That will be described in the scope of work as we write it. Currently, there is a manpower of 1 base camp manager, 2 base camp workers, 1 food service worker, and also a UXO escort worker / base camp worker. We're going to be negotiating with the eventual contractor to have a smaller crew, one, to save money, and because we're expecting for the next year to have less volunteers because we need to maintain our social distancing for the volunteers on the island. For the next year, we think we can do a lot of the same work with less number of people and a smaller contract, but as we go forward and see what the real costs of base camp operations are going to be in the out years, we will also be looking at maybe changing the schedule to reduce the number of days on island. One of the examples could be in a few years from now, we may, instead of going 12 months out of the year, we may only go 9 months and skip the summer hurricane season months when we have rough south swells and the high heat, and we can't plant in those months. Most of the times during those months, we're doing mostly just maintenance and brush clearing and stuff like that. But if we have to forego those months in order to save money, those are one of the options that we'll be looking at. And we're looking at maybe just going out when we can plant and tailoring it to those type of conditions. So those will be issues that we'll try to build into the scope of work for the new contractor, that they'll have to be flexible in the future years, as we may have to reduce future years as we see how funding really happens and how reimbursements from the grant effort is happening too. Okay, and that's it. And then we're requesting for one commissioner to participate on the review committee for the bids, and then to be part of the selection committee for the eventual award.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion as outlined by the Executive Director.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Holt, second.
Thank you. Can we have some discussion, and can I call if there's any volunteers to from the commission to serve on contract review and selection board?
Commissioner Holt, I just have a question, Mike, about maintenance during maintenance of the planting project, of the restoration project, while there are no scheduled access for restoration. Is that going to be somehow included as well?
We may just go out there by the boat and run up, drive up the road, turn the water on, and then maybe run back down, do those kind of things. It just means the base camp will be closed for workers and visitors overnight stay. I mean, with the boat, we can stay overnight. We just tie up the boat, sleep on the beach. We can use the buildings. There's water there. We won't turn the power on, and we won't activate the base camp contract. Right now, our new planting scheme is to plant in gullies that do not have irrigation. We're already foreseeing the days where we won't be able to get irrigation to some of these areas. So we're trying to develop more planting systems that do not rely on regular irrigation. And we're only irrigating for the 3 or 4 days at the beginning of the month when we're there. And then after that, there's no irrigation for the rest of the month till we come back out again. So we're going to we're already making plans in our methodology to accommodate this type of future on the island.
Mahalo.
Other discussion from the commission? I guess we'll say if there's no other interest, I'm willing to serve for a contract review. But if others are interested, please.
I can serve on the other one if nobody else wants to. You wanted 2 people, right, Mike?
No, just one. Just one commissioner.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you said 1 for the review and 1 for the selection.
It's the same. The same person can be the review and selection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you go ahead, Josh.
Good to have another engineer on board.
Maybe people are saving their energy for the next agenda item. That's good. That's good. Okay. So the motion as proposed, and with myself, Commissioner Kaakua, for the contract review and selection board. Thanks, Terry. Can we call for the vote?
Commissioner Case,
Aye.
Commissioner Holt,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsey,
Aye.
Commissioner Mataafa,
Aye.
Commissioner Piscaya,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaakua.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving to action item 4C, election of vice chair.
I'll leave this with you.
Vice chair has been vacant. We've been vacant of vice chair, I think, since spring, right, of last year. And I think I was vice chair, and the Michelle McLean, our former chair, I would meet with her, some of the duties, we talk about the agenda. I'm looking for a vice chair. I think it's good for the commission to have one. I think we can work with our ED, with our staff, to make sure that I'm sure there's some pukas that I'm forgetting about as chair. So I'd appreciate a vice chair from this group. So if you're interested, I'd encourage you to self-nominate.
Can I make one comment, Chair, please?
Yes.
Just a reminder that the vice chair position is not in the statutory regulations for the KIRC. So it is not an appointed or confirmed position or anything as such. It's just an internal commission position that is up to the commission to elect and appoint. And there's no need for any submission to legislature for confirmation or governor's approval as such. Thank you.
Is there any comment and discussion? And does anybody want to volunteer?
Someone has to volunteer.
How about somebody from Maui?
If you promise not to be absent, I'll be happy to submit my name. Or Hoku, if you.
Actually, Commissioner Holt is a carryover, and her term will be ending at the end of this year, end of this session. Yeah, this fiscal year.
That's what I was going to ask, is Commissioner Holt. That's what I was going to ask as far as the length of my time still remaining. Yeah, since I was a carryover from that.
Yeah, Commissioner Holt's position will continue until the next legislative session is completed, and then a new position will be appointed by the governor and confirmed. So you can be a carryover until the end of the legislative session. So I mean,
I support Commissioner Lindsey 100%.
she did just get reconfirmed for a whole new term.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Okay, can the chair make a motion?
I'll make it. I move for Commissioner Lindsey to be the vice chair of KIRC.
I second Commissioner Piscaya.
Thank you. We're going to do the roll call before she changes her mind.
Commissioner Case,
Aye.
Commissioner Holt,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsey,
Aye.
Commissioner Mataafa,
Aye.
Commissioner Piscaya,
Aye.
and Commissioner Kaakua.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Lindsey. We're going to move.
Congratulations.
we're moving to action item 4D, review and approve ledge positions for 2021 session.
Okay, before I go over the recommended positions for the next legislative session, I'll go over what happened this past legislative session. So starting with House Bill 1880, introduced by Representative Yamane, it was an appropriation, a request for appropriation to fund the operation of KIRC. Initially, it was, it looked at 2 full-time positions and maybe about a $500,000 general fund. Halfway through the session, when we had the fire, we were able to work with Senator Kaho'olawe to get him to introduce in his waterland committee a emergency appropriation of $1.4 million for fire recovery and get the approval of the author of the bill, Representative Yamane. We worked with Senator English and Kaho'olawe to get this introduced in, and it was moving on to WHAM, and then COVID hit us, and all the funding for all these bills were gone. So that's where we ended up with that one. In the state budget, House Bill 220, it passed as Act 7. It adjusted the KIRC's appropriation budget. It removed the funding for the KIRC for the vacant positions we had, which was the UXO safety position and the cultural project coordinator position, and eliminated the second-year funding of the $100,000 in general operating funds. We also had a CIP in House Bill 2725. We worked with Senator. We were able to get introduced into the CIP bill, well, at first, about $1 million in construction money to help with the fire recovery. But in the final bill, it did not pass out. So the additional money did not pass out in the final version of the bill. We did get 3 confirmation hearings for GM 773, 774, 775, confirming Commissioner Lindsey, Commissioner Piscaya, and Commissioner Mataafa for their position within the KIRC. We did get introduced a few resolutions in support of the KIRC. Representative Coit introduced 2 resolutions, one House Resolution 90 and then a concurrent Resolution 109, urging all the state departments and agencies to help cooperate and assist the KIRC in its recovery, in any technical, engineering, and logistics supports for helping the recovery from the fire. We were hopefully trying to get some support through State Department of Defense or maybe even National Guard for helicopter lifts to take out heavy equipment to replace some of the things that we lost in the fire. Other than that, we had some carryover legislation that didn't get picked up for this fiscal year. So that was just kind of a summary. The basic summary was we had a lot of requests, a lot of things in the fire, and at the end, all the money was gone. Sorry. So that was it. Okay. Recommendations for next fiscal year. We already know that the odds of getting any general fund increase are going to be very low. So we're only making one ask, and that is to restore the funding for the Cultural Resource Project Coordinator position that just got awarded to us the previous year. One of the reasons why we couldn't fill the position was we were trying to get the second-year funding established and become a more to have it a reoccurring funding. We got it funded in the second half of a biennium, so we weren't guaranteed that the next year we were going to get it. When we got the funding for the first year, we were trying to ensure that we had the second-year funding, which we eventually got. So when we started to fill it, we had some candidates, but then all our candidates disappeared and started living in tents on Mauka Kea, and we're not available to work on Maui anymore. So all the candidates that we had that wanted to work in the position were no longer available for a while. So, and then the funding for the position was removed in the current budget. So our only ask is to try to restore this funding if possible. Most likely it's not going to be through the administration's request. It will be probably through a legislative request that we'll have to go separately and ask for. If there is any general operating funds available that anyone is willing, any legislator is willing to introduce for us, we will not say no, and we will try to encourage that also. But the odds of getting general fund increases for operating money for us through the administration, we are not hopeful for, so we're not really going to put it in play for this year. We are looking at 2 CIP requests that hopefully we can get in. One is the continuation of the CIP funding for the Kaho'olawe Dryland Forest Restoration Project, which is about $1.5 million per year for the 2 years of the biennium. Some of the feedback we got from the visiting legislators that introduced the bill, they were really remarked about how well the planting are and how barren and desolate the areas are that we are planting in. So they said this is one of the greatest restoration projects they've ever seen because they've seen how desolate and bad and hard the landscape is, and they said these things are thriving and growing and doing great. So they're very supportive. Hopefully we can get another introduction again. And the second CIP request is going to be for a phase 2 of the capital improvement funding for the Kihei site. One of our new model is that we are preparing for the post-COVID Maui, knowing that when we finally get over the COVID restrictions and going into this post-COVID Maui will have to be ready for this new visitors. And one of the things that we're seeing is that the new visitors that are going to be coming to Hawaii that we foresee are going to be younger, more in the millennial category, more socially active, looking for more than just relaxing on the beach and cruising around and enjoying cocktails and going to luau's, but being engaged in more social issues and wanting to visit more socially responsible, learning, educational type environments, which is what the Kihei Center is completely about. So one of our new marketing themes is to look at the new travelers to Hawaii, that the new travelers are going to be younger millennials that are more socially justice minded, that want to learn more about Hawaii's social justice and social issues and the history that relates to it, that we will try to present at the Kihei Center. So that is one of the twists that we're going to be adding on to our marketing plan for Kihei. So in summary, our requests for next legislative session, funding, restore funding for the Cultural Resource Project, coordinator position for personnel in general funds, and then in CIP funds, try to get funding for a continuation of the Kaho'olawe Dryland Forest Restoration Project, and requests for phase 2 of the Kihei Education Operations Center project. And I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thanks, Mike. Let's open it up to the commission for discussion.
So just clarification, Mike, these are going to be budget requests outside of the administration budget?
The cultural position probably is going to be outside, but if there's an opening for CIP, I would like to ask for the dryland forest and Kihei maybe, but Kihei, who knows what they can do about Kihei, but at least through the administration, the dryland forest one, because it is a field operation type of forest restoration project. We can always decrease the requests.
Yeah, so just in keeping with my past practice, I think I will abstain from this topic, and then I will support whatever this commission recommends through the administration budget.
Thank you. Other discussion?
Yeah, so sorry, this is Commissioner Mata'afa. So is there an urgent need for the cultural resource resource project coordinator at this time, or can we wait until after all this dust settles with the COVID-19 and kind of figure it out from that point? Is there like an urgent need, like we need them like right, this next fiscal year, or things are going to go awry? Because for me personally, I just have a problem. Like, I know we're all kind of hurting everywhere, and I know it's hard to put new positions in, and I don't know if it's going to be. I have a feeling it's probably going to be denied, but for me, I don't know. It's just hard for me to approve new positions right now unless it's urgently needed at this time.
Well, I mean, right now, there are a number of us in the commission, within the KIRC staff, that is executing the functions, but there are certain functions that we don't have we don't have the ability or the time to do ourselves. One of the biggest ones is cultural site monitoring, and also the annual review of EV on the island. Like some of the cultural ceremonial stuff I'm picking up, like with the rain ceremony coming up next month, I'm participating and kind of being the liaison for that. Makahiki, I'm liaisoning with the PKO for those things. And a lot of the cultural ceremonies, I'll do it myself for now. But the physical work on the island relating to the archaeological, cultural history, artifacts, stuff like that, I can't even get to Maui, so we really, it would be very helpful to have the position in. I think part of it is that we've gotten it approved 4 or 5 times in the past in multiple bills, and we were in the process of filling it. If we didn't have everybody, if all the candidates were, well, the candidates are now available, so I guess that's one of the parts. Things have changed a little bit, so. It's hard to say. I mean, yeah, it's hard to say. I'll let the commissioners talk about it. Yeah.
This is Commissioner Holt, and I think I would support it because we've not had that position filled for so very long, and it was set up to be an important part of the functioning of the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission, right alongside land restoration and ocean resources. So it was intended to be a 3-pronged support to the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission, and we've been without the cultural education person for a very long time. We're fortunate that staff such as Mike and others can fill in for parts of it, but I would continue to support seeking the position if we can.
Commissioner Pescaya, is there a portion of this position, kuleana, to support outreach education and translating the cultural resources to the classroom? Because there's such high demand for content and connection between our online classrooms and teachers who normally bring their students on service learning trips on both sides of the island, and with limited access, I think we're constantly looking for ways to bring Kaho'olawe to the people. And would this position be, instrumental in doing that, you think?
This is the Executive Director, Mike. Yes, one of the things that we have been seeing in the last few years is that there's an increase in educational grants and funding relating to cultural education and place-based education. One of the goals of having this position back again, in addition to the cultural practices on the island, the cultural resource management, is also to be the lead education person to coordinate. Right now, Maggie is trying to do a combination of outreach, information, newsletter, reporting, grant writing, and education outreach, which dilutes all the different elements. The position also, we're hoping, is to also be a revenue generator with the educational components. It allows us to expand more into educational grants and to help with the online education DOE functions that we could get funding. So it expands our ability to generate revenue for the type of operations we're doing on the island. That's why that is the one position that we would like to get restored if we could, because it's kind of a multiplier of a one body will not only execute the tasks that we do, but also generate revenue for us.
Can I just, I am sure it's an important position. I don't think this is the year to certainly expect that you'd be able to add positions. And so I agree, I'd be very hesitant about requesting it. We're in a very, very serious financial situation, and you know, we're going to have to be putting a lot of effort into saving jobs. So I think it's a tough sell to add a position at this time.
Maybe a strategy question for the group. Would it be stronger to omit the request for a position and to push our CIP request?
Sorry, this is me. So in asking for this request, this question is for Mike. How would this affect your relationships with the state legislators that you have currently? Is asking them kind of something that is kind of taboo at this point? Like, don't ask for it because it might screw up the relationship? Or, I mean, in your opinion, does it hurt the commission more than it helps at this point with all that's going on with COVID?
Yeah, I don't think it hurts so much because I'm going to be asking the person who introduced it and got it awarded prior. So it was his bills in the past that he introduced these bills already that to get the funding for this position. So I'm going to broach him with the subject, and if he's willing to introduce it, then he introduces it. If he's not, he'll tell me he's not going to do it, and you know, and then it won't be. It's just that it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt to, I guess, ask it. It's not going to be an administration request. It's going to be, you know, I'm going to float it and say, hey, if he calls me and says, hey, you need anything this year? I say, yeah, can we get the funding back for this position? And he goes, well, I'll take a look at it, or not a chance. He'll tell me that. And then I'll report back to the commission that it was, I'm just looking for the ability to at least make the ask, you know, the approval that say, hey, you know, if he asks me for something, this is what I want to have something in my pocket ready to ask for. The CIP is different. So CIP is a different source of funding. It's a different pot of money. So, you know, it's not as bad as general funds, but, you know, if he wants, if some of the legislators want to say, hey, Mike, do you need anything in CIP? And I go, yeah, we could use this help, you know, and they introduce it and they put it in the bill, then that's fine. Yeah.
Chair Josh?
Yes.
I just wanted to share with our new commissioners that this position is not a new position to our commission. It's a position that we've had and have been vacant. So, you know, asking for money for it is not an unusual request. And I think Mike's strategy of going in a different direction is probably helpful and takes the burden away, let's say, from our land department.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you try. If you're success, great. If not, well, you know, that's how it is.
Yeah. And it was awarded last year as well, the funding for it. Right?
Yeah, we've gotten it every year. Yeah.
Right.
I saw other hands, other discussion, comments.
No. I'll just say, is it possible to separate out the requests and do it individually instead of as a package at this point? Because I'm okay with the CIP funding request.
Either or, you guys can vote on any of the elements or to make the ask or not make the ask of any one of these.
Yeah, we can take it in pieces. Let's start with the restore funding to cultural resource project coordinator position. Any further comment or discussion?
I just want to direct you guys to the chat. We did have a question. Thank you, Commissioner Lindsey, for addressing it. So Manuel asked Chairman Kaakua and Executive Director Nahoopii, do KIRC members have access to the names of potential cultural resource manager that were made an offer but chose to sleep in tents at Mauna Kea and refused the offer to malama Kanaloa? So just a question about the publicness of the names of the applicants.
Offers were not made because nobody was available to relocate to Maui when we questioned them. Yeah, and we can't disclose the applicants because there were no offer. There was no formal offer because nobody could make the resident requirements at the time.
Thanks, Maggie, and then thanks, Manny, for your question. And I appreciated Mike's discussion about for the cultural resource project coordinator position. You know, if you're asking for the board's or the commission's approval for it, right? You know, if other legislators should introduce it, we want to be able to say yes, the board is supportive or not. It just gives us allowance to seek funding, or for them to seek funding on our behalf.
Excuse me. So, Mike, since it was introduced last year, was it did it pass the legislature?
We got it. It wasn't in this 20. It was in 19, and with the 19 one, the funding became reoccurring. It was only in 20 that became all the vacant position fundings were removed. So that's what happened. Yeah. We didn't get the release of funds till like in the middle of FY20 because we had to request the release of funds and the approval to fill the position. And then once we got the approval to fill, then we started recruiting. We got some applicants, and then we started saying, "Hey, can you start? You got to move to Maui." "Oh, you know, I can't go to Maui right now. I'm doing this. You know, I'm doing this and such." Yeah, so that's where we were.
So that's why we have to ask again, because we need new funding.
Yes, because the funding was taken away. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion on the first legislative position?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. A second?
Commissioner Holt, second.
Okay, thank you. We're going to call for the vote. And then you can support, oppose, or abstain.
Commissioner Case,
Abstain.
Commissioner Holt,
Support.
Commissioner Lindsey,
Support.
Commissioner Mataafa,
Oppose.
Commissioner Pascaya,
Support.
Commissioner Kaakua.
Support. Motion carries. Second motion for legislative positions is continuation of CIP funding for the Kaho'olawe Dryland Forest Restoration Project. Is there a motion?
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second by Pescaya.
Thank you. I'm going to call for the vote.
Commissioner Case,
Abstain.
Commissioner Holt,
Support.
Commissioner Lindsey,
Support.
Commissioner Mataafa,
Support.
Commissioner Pascaya,
Support.
Commissioner Kaakua.
Support. Motion carries. Last item for request capital improvement funding for phase 2 of KIRC PIS Education Operations Center. Is there a motion?
Commissioner Holt, I move that we support the proposal.
Second.
Thank you. Call for the vote and roll call.
Commissioner Case,
Can you repeat the motion, please?
The motion is to request 3.5 million in general obligation bond funds to complete final designs and planning for KIRC Education and Operations Center.
Okay, I'll abstain. Thank you.
Commissioner Holt,
Support.
Commissioner Lindsey,
Support.
Commissioner Mataafa,
Support.
Commissioner Paskaya,
Support.
Commissioner Kaakua.
Support. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We do have one question on the chat, and it was a request for me to recite the names of those that were in the cultural position. I think we started off with Commissioner Holt was our first. Well, actually, it was the cultural manager at the time, right? And then we had a cultural tech with Kale Nuhiva.
It was cultural education manager.
Yeah, cultural education manager. And then we had Kale Nuhiva was, I think she took over your position, and she was also a cultural technician or something, such. And then Kale Koa, he was in the position at one time. And then Moi Tau from Maui, Kumuhula. And then after that, we had Kahale. Saito was the next, that's when we changed over to, I think, project coordinator. And then also Kui Gaparo was our last one. He left to go to Kamehameha. So thank you, Manny, for the question.
And Mike, this was a full-time position, right?
Yes, it was a full-time position, spending time on island and also spending time, in the office and in the community, and working directly with the various cultural groups to facilitate the cultural access and cultural use of Kaho'olawe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to administrative business, executive director's report.
Okay, moving to the executive director's report. We submitted in your packet the FY20 final expenditure for the year. For FY20, the previous fiscal year, we were 11% under budget overall, with about 10% under budget for personnel costs and about 15% under budget for non-personnel costs. Most of the personnel cost savings were due to the reset in some of the salary ranges with the new administrative officer position. Hiring the new position, we started them at the floor of the salary, so that reset the personnel costs. And also, we had set aside some funds in last year for the cultural resource project coordinator, which didn't get filled, so those funds were also saved. The majority of the non-personnel cost savings were realized with the reduction in travel due to the pandemic. We cut significantly back on commission travel and staff travel. Legislative travel was significantly cut back since we didn't show up to the legislature for a while. We also had set aside some funds in the storage lease and savings and office operations due to the reduced use of the copier, reduced electrical, and reduced telephone and internet services during the pandemic period. Our FY21 or the current fiscal year expenditure report is submitted. We had the first first month's expenditure listed. We just wanted you to note the new format that is in your packet, listing each of the funding sources and then managing the budget according to the individual funding sources. Overall, the KIRC is on track for the current fiscal year. Staff is being conservative with the first quarter's allotment that we got, so we are significantly below spending the first quarter's allotment. We just got word that second quarter's allotment is going to be available, so now we're going to be trying to spend the rest of the first quarter's allotment and then also be conservative with the second quarter allotment, not knowing what the third and fourth quarters are going to be. So we'll kind of slowly each quarter, hopefully we'll know what the entire fiscal year's allotment for general funds are going to be sometime maybe by the mid of the fiscal year, hopefully. We attached the long-range schedule, the current long-range schedule. Some of the upcoming events we have is a rain ceremony happening in October. We will be hosting the Kaho'olawe ceremony from Honakanaya. We already have a small group planning to come out. We have to work through quarantine issues with the Maui Mayor, but I think we have some of those issues already worked out. So also Makahiki is scheduled for Thanksgiving week, actually Thanksgiving Day. So they're having, the Ohana is having discussions about if quarantine will be on or not be on at that time, and getting to island. We will be trying to support as much as we can, even though we won't be physically on island because it's during the Thanksgiving holiday. We're already planning to support with a boat run maybe in the beginning, the day before Thanksgiving, helping get people and supplies to the island to support Makahiki. Also on the long range schedule, we don't really have access dates picked for beyond March of next year. We're waiting to hear from the Ohana on what their access dates are so that we can coordinate our schedules. We have found that being on island at the same time works and helps if there's any necessity or any emergency that we can provide support from base camp. We can help out if we're on this island at the same time. Administrative staffing personnel, just a quick update that we did have 3 confirmation hearings this past legislative session for Commissioners Liz Biscaya and Mataafa. They were appointed for terms on the commission. Commissioner Lindsey will be serving her 2nd term, while Commissioners Biscaya and Mataafa will be serving their 1st terms. Commissioner Ching did give us a formal notice that he will not be continuing his 2nd term on the commission. He is on the mainland and enjoying a new baby. So we did get formal notice to the PKO to submit a new name for the replacement commissioner. And I did send them an email this morning that I just got word from the DLR chair case that boards and commission would like to get a name this month. So I did forward that out message today so if they can submit the names this month. Commissioner Holt is serving as a carryover from the Native Hawaiian organizations. We are in the process of trying to select a replacement for I had asked one person, trying to see if that person is available. She is currently on another commission, but that is the PAC Fest commission, which we don't know what the status of PAC Fest is. So hopefully we'll get an answer quickly and see if she is available for our commission. If not, then we will do an open posting for other Native Hawaiian organizations. The person that we had asked comes very highly recommended, and from a lot of people I've talked to, and also from the Ohana. So hopefully it'll be a good selection, and has spent a lot of time on island, creating mele and hula and oli for Kaho'olawe. KIRC staff update. We have a new administrative officer. I don't think the commissioners have met him yet. He replaced retired Kaunoe Lee, and that is Matt Hatakeyama. You can see him in the picture. He started, I think, the beginning of this calendar year, towards this calendar year. All other funded positions are filled. We have no other vacancies on staff. Just a quick update on, I've been sending you guys updates on our COVID procedures we implemented. We did a test run on our last access about new COVID procedures for volunteers on island. We had staff from Dawson Corporation come out and act as volunteers. Dawson is now the base camp contractor. They took over the contract from Zapata. Zapata still has the main contract, but Zapata bought the contract. Dawson bought the contract from them, and is now all the employees on island who work for the base camp contract is now from Dawson. They came out and tested new procedures. We added new wash stations, new separation distance, new daily, twice daily spraying of common touch areas by the base camp staff. We changed the dining hall facilities so that's only one person per table or one family per table. We also added in new meal process so that people order their meals and then they're handed a plate instead of making their own food, helping themselves. The base camp guys are helping now in the kitchen, providing the kitchen services. We added a new screening process on the boat. We are using the inter island questionnaire so that we do have statements from the volunteers and from staff that they affirm that they do not have any symptoms and have not been tested positive for COVID. We do a temperature screening and a wash hand station at the boathouse prior to them loading the boat. We do the same type of screening on island. In the office, we created a screening table that I shared with the other administrators at DLNR, that we do a self-screening health check and sign in when they come into the KIRC office. They have a thermometer, they can take their own temperature. They go through a checklist of health questions that they self-acknowledge and self-affirm that they're healthy, and are reminded to regular hand washing, sanitation, cleaning their work area. So they go through this process every day when they come into the office as a refresher to remind them of the safety procedures they need to implement in the office. The biosecure nursery, no updates. It's all pending funding, part of the KIHE project. And then I think the dryland forest CIP project update will be part of our restoration project updates. No new legislative site visits or communications with the legislature since the closing of the legislative session. So that's it for the ED report. Attached to your ED report is also the long-range schedule. I will turn it over to Maggie, who provided the grant funding handout that is in your packet, and she can go over the grants that have been funded, they're pending, and under review.
Okay, I did some slides, that way it's a little bit easier to look at. So I'll share that with you guys if you want to take out the document.
And then Chair, I'm going to step out for a few seconds. I'll be right back.
Can I go into, after I'm done, can I go into the program area updates, or do you want me to wait?
No, go ahead. We also did recordings of our program managers doing their program updates. And it's something that we may be implementing when we go back, even when we go back to physical meetings back at the DLNR boardroom. We'll have our staff from Maui make presentations on the big TV screen.
Okay, so can you guys at least see it? It's not letting me present it while I'm in this mode, but at least if you guys can see it, yeah? Can everybody see it?
That's great.
Okay, cool. All right, so we currently have in progress right now are our IMLS 3, the KIRC Virtual Museum Stage 3 Collaborations and Special Collections project. It was originally awarded in the amount of $75,000, and Terry recently requested and received an extension on the grant, so it'll run through July 31st of 2021. Then we have the Marine Science Education and Training mini grant that the Ocean program is running, and that was awarded for $15,000. They also recently received an extension for 1 year. The original grant was supposed to end this October, but it'll run through next October as we restructure and reconnect with the teachers at Maui High to decide how we're going to move forward in this next year with the cohort. And then finally, we have the Marine Debris Removal Grant from NOAA and NIFWIF in the amount of $76,025. And we also recently got an extension due to the COVID issues with volunteers on that project. So now it will run through 2022. I just received that word last week, so I haven't had a chance to update this slide. We also have been in conversations with NIFWIF representatives regarding our first access for that project, which is tentatively on the schedule for October. However, it will probably be moved to a later month now that we're kind of in conversation with the H-Power representatives for how to actually move forward with the removal. We also have another grant that was officially awarded, however, it is not active yet, from the State Department of Health. It's our O&M plan for Kaakua, so the operations and maintenance plan. It was awarded for the amount of $80,665 to begin this coming October. We did have a meeting with those guys recently that we are still planning for an October start date. And that amount includes a potential KIR specialist for restoration. Finally, these are grants that have currently been submitted that I've been working on over the last few months and are under review, awaiting notification. So we actually just got notification this morning from Anna over at Kupu that the contract was signed. So they will be moving forward in the next week or two in getting applicants paired with sites, work sites. So we did put in for up to 5 positions for that that program, and looks like we'll be hearing back from them shortly if we got any matches. I also submitted 2 grants to the Water Smart program, so Department of Interior, Bureau of Reclamation, for funding for the Kaakua and Kamohio watershed projects. The first one would be a 2-year project, asking the majority of that money is being asked for base camp, so for base camp contract for reimbursables. The second one is for 3 years in the same project, and looking at, again, majority of that being reimbursable for base camp over the 3-year project term. And then I also submitted a grant to the National Endowment for Humanities to kind of update and enhance the KIRC Island Guide mobile app to be more of a virtual field trip kind of, or a virtual access experience project that we want to kind of move forward, as Mike said, with the change in potential tourism choices of people coming to the islands and wanting to do things that are more socially justice or ecologically connected to place, or different activities and cultural things happening here in the islands. We are hoping to be able to use this NEH project, if we're awarded it, to start on that. So there's that one. And then kind of along those lines, as part of my outreach update, one of the big projects we worked on in the last couple of months was with Maui Huliau Foundation, and they set up a virtual classroom for students here on Maui to support teachers in giving them resources to be able to make the remote learning and distance learning process a little bit more enjoyable and interactive for kids. So this is a project I partnered with them on, and it was developing a Kaho'olawe field trip for students, and it was the first unit offered through the Foundation's virtual Aloha Aina classroom when they opened it. And to date, roughly 100 children from Maui have gone through the lesson and have engaged with this map and the different curriculum pieces that I worked on for that project. So we're pretty excited about that, and now it's being opened up to even more teachers, so hopefully we'll have more kids who go through it. So that's for me in the PIS, and now I can share the restoration and ocean program status updates. Let me share that. Yeah.
Oh, Maggie, maybe while you queue it up, I know that was a lot. Maybe I can just pause for a moment if the commissioners have any feedback or comments.
I'm sorry, you're right. I forget. There's like formalities we have to adhere to.
I do have one comment, Chair. With regard to the DOH funding, 80,000, that is not a request yet in our budget because we did not want to put any requests for reimbursable trust funds until we actually sign a contract with DOH. If we do have to sign a contract with DOH and the money is completely reimbursable, we will have a presentation at the next commission meeting to amend the budget to increase our reimbursable amounts.
I just want to say great work on pursuing all those grants.
Mm-hmm.
Really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, we knew we had to hustle very early. So,
And I know you are hustling.
yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I do have one from, let's see, on the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Honolulu Archdiocese Bishop contact you about Kaakua. I think, Manny, let's talk offline. I did get something from a relative of mine. Okay. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Maggie. Let's jump into the project status update.
Okay. So we'll start with Paul. Oh, wait, hold on. They went away. Okay. All right.
Afternoon, commissioners. It's been many months since our last date, but due to recap things, since we started our CIP planting in November of last year, we're supposed to put in 15,000 plants.
Cannot hear anything.
Okay. You guys can't hear it?
Yeah, he probably got to, next time we do, we got to use a dedicated mic.
No, I can hear it. We can hear it just fine coming through on our side. So I'm just
faint, very faint.
Yeah, it's very
It's
faint on this side.
okay. That's interesting. And now I can't get my Zoom screen back. Where are you guys? I know, but it's not. Hold on. Like I can only see you guys little.
Was someone else watching in the office through Zoom? Because you guys are watching directly the video, right?
Yeah, we're watching it on but I was sharing it through the screen. So and now I can't, I'm like stuck in this little window. Hold on. All right, let's just.
Good afternoon, commissioners. It's been many months since our last date, but since we were trying to recap, since we started our CIP plan November of last year.
Oh, and our internet connection is starting to mess up. So.
Do you want to try closing the Zoom meeting and coming back into it? That
Reopening.
sometimes works.
Yeah, we might need
Oh,
to do
except don't close it if you're hosting it.
which I am.
Don't close it if you're hosting it. Though.
I know. Oh, wait, okay. I fixed it. So I've just disconnected from our big TV. So I think we'll be in a better spot now.
The COVID and the modification of the schedule island, today we put in about 12,000 plants. It's been very difficult to put in 1,000 plants or 2,000 plants without.
Okay, we're gonna try one more time.
Yeah, I think maybe it's the video transmitting on Zoom. It's too much bandwidth. Yeah.
No, it's on my machine. It shouldn't. Oh, you mean across? Yes, that's possible.
Across,
Yeah, that's possible. All right, well, let's try one more time. It might still be low.
Good afternoon, commissioners. It's been many months since our last update, but I think to try to recap things, since we started our CIP plantings in December of last year, we were supposed to put in about 15,000 plants from November till May. Because of COVID and the modification of our schedules on island, to date we put in about 12,000 plants. It's been very difficult to put in 1,000 plants or 2,000 plants without the assistance of the volunteers.
And I'll just back up. He said they put in 15,000 plants. That's the first about 30 seconds we missed. And I figured out how to share the sound from the video through the Zoom. So now we're good.
We're focusing in the CIP2 work area and also in the CIP1 area. and there's some adjacent windrows next to these areas. We're still able to irrigate the plants on a monthly basis, and so far survival rate looks about 80%. One of our new techniques that we're doing is, again, in Mike's update and in the newsletter, we're trying to plant the plants off of irrigation, finding little depressions or a little niche where the plants would have a better chance of survival, and planting them in these areas. This eliminates the augering and a lot of the steps that are very difficult to do without the volunteers. Another big thing since the last meeting, the fire that started on the island on February 22nd. It burned for about a week and a half. Our estimate is that it burned about 10,000 acres. The fire originated in the ili of Keali Pihiki and then advanced along the southern coast to the Waikahululu Gulch, and then along the northern coast up to and a little bit past Nahoopii. A lot of these areas that the fire struck through were uncleared areas. There's reports of people viewing from Maui were seeing flashes in the evening when the fire was going off. There was a period when the fire seemed to burn out, but started up about a couple of days later. I flew out with a DOFA personnel, and we saw the fire slowly moving along the naval gunfire area or above a hupu, and it was determined at that time that we should send in water drops. Otherwise, the potential of the fire advancing had a big potential of the fire burning, the rest of the island, a better part of the island. As a result of the fire, the landscape looks very different, with it being cleared. Unfortunately, the plants or the grasses that have been introduced in the past to slow down and to stem erosion are mostly all alien species, and these plants that are fire adapted, where fire is part of their natural life cycle, these plants have come back. Other areas where they were natives, like the Albutilon, Ma'o, a few pockets of Ilima, these areas were very heavily hit by the fire, and the rebounding or regrowth of the native plants would be very reduced at this time. We've put out about 6 fire plots to monitor the recovery of the vegetation in these fire areas. Ma'o in the Kaukau-Kapapa area seems to be rebounding, about 60% survival of the Ma'o that was burnt. We're also doing monitoring plots of seedlings that are coming up, and also doing aerial drone photos. During the fire, we got a lot of calls, people wanting to assist us, giving us plants, people recommending erosion control techniques. We're trying to get native seed. I think a fire of this scale, this vastness, where do you start? One of our goals, one of restoration goals or KIRC's goals for the next couple of years is try to plant more strategically, so that there are pockets of native vegetation in areas that when they do burn in the future, which they will burn, that these areas will be areas where seed can blow out from, or then there is accumulation of native seed in the soil around the areas. And also, we'd like to start planting more in rows so that of one species, so we can come in and easily harvest the native seed for revegetation. Native seed, we're talking about a'ali'i in particular, ohai, evahinahina, nayo, which does very well, and also ma'o, again, and the native grass kavelu. Our warrior plants are plants that do very well on Kaho'olawe. As a result of the fire, the mouse bloom in the Honakanaya area has been greatly scaled back or reduced this year because of lack of vegetation and or the mice
habitat getting burnt up. Although mouse populations are still very high in the upland areas, where the areas did not burn, a little moisture areas, and a little bit more food resources for them. Again, we're looking forward to the in September to have volunteers come back and assist us in our plantings. One thing that we're going to be focusing in on is trying to complete some of our plantings for our CIP area last year, focusing our work on the water catchment. Again, during this last couple of months, we've worked on the water catchment, patched up holes in the gutters, cleared around the vegetation. We need to try to keep up on the upkeep and the maintenance of our water catchment. Again, with the volunteers, looking at trying to do more plantings in hardpan areas, in Tier 1, only surface cleared areas, planting without irrigation, again, soaking the ground, putting the plant on the ground, covering it with compost, and putting a thick layer of either cinder and or rocks on it, so that we can start the revegetation of bare areas. Thank you. Are there any questions?
And if there are, we can relay them to Paul via the radio. We do have the radio here. So if you guys have, we can try that. And then
I have a question.
Yep.
Any problem with Niothrip?
Niothrip. Yeah, let's hit the radio. I don't.
That's a good question. I call Paul. Yeah, call Paul. We were trying to set up a Zoom link to Island in the base camp, but we didn't want to trust the internet connection out there yet.
Yeah. Terry's running to get the radio. So while we wait on that, any other questions from the submission?
You want to move on with the ocean report?
Sure. It's about 5 minutes again.
Aloha, Commissioners. My name is Dean Tokishi. I have not yet had the privilege to meet all of you yet, so I'd like to give a quick introduction of myself. I'm from Waiuku, Maui. I've been working with the KIRC for the last 17 years and a part of the cleanup project prior to that. I currently serve as the Ocean Program Manager. I have one other staff member, Courtney Kerr, that works with me in the program. I'm here today to provide the Ocean Program Status Update for the reporting period October 19th to August 2020. So really briefly, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you guys have probably had a lot on your plate already and have heard a lot from Mike, so I'll be going through this very quickly. As far as grant updates, we have 2 current grants that we're working on. One is the NOAA PIRO. It's a mini grant. It's a marine educational training grant. We've partnered with Maui High School here locally to work with their marine science program and educating and providing curriculum for their marine science students, all of their students, marine science students, providing very unique aspects of teaching that includes all aspects of Hawaiian studies, Hawaiian culture, influences, and the unique grounds that Kaho'olawe provide for the marine training aspect. It's a mini grant. It provides $15,000. The grant originally ran from November 2019 to October, the end of October 2020. Due to some COVID challenges we've had, we've requested an extension, and the grant now will run for an extra year, now expiring in October 31, 2021. We were about 3/4 of the way through the grant accomplishments. We have done about 5 in-class lectures and workshops with them, covering everything from traditional ecological knowledge to marine survey techniques to just a historical background of Kaho'olawe. One other workshop was to be held was canceled in March due to the closing of the DOE schools. And we were then planning to take 16 selected students out to Kaho'olawe to then implement a lot what was learned during the course of the year. What we still need to finish up is that access and that one workshop. We are working with the teachers to figure out how we can make the selection process and also how we can accomplish that last workshop. The second grant we're currently working on is from NOAA. It's a NIFWIF marine debris removal grant. The obligation is for a minimum of 5 tons of marine debris to be removed from Kanaloa Bay, specifically Kaho'olawe Beach, through 3 accesses. Again, this grant as well was extension request was made and granted. So the grant originally was for 2 years, but now it'll be running for 3 and will be expiring in September 2022. The unique aspect of this grant that we'll be doing as compared to previous marine debris removal grants is that all of the debris we're going to be avoiding landfill deposits. Debris will either be shipped to Oahu's H power plant or H power to be used for energy consumption to power homes on Oahu. They'll be either secondly recycled, and thirdly we want to reuse them on the island, keep them on the island of Kaho'olawe to be used as sediment reduction in deep gullies and valleys. We're working with the restoration program on that. So those are our 2 major grants. I'm sorry, also the NIFWIF Marine Debris Grant is a total of $76,000. Ongoing projects we've had and we've been doing over the last several months. We've planted 6,365 native plants along the shoreline in Honokanaia and Honokanainai. That includes everything from Aki-Aki, Milo, Nayo, and Pohuihui. Again, all efforts are to reduce sedimentation runoff into the ocean, but also to solidify and harden the coastline biologically to help reduce erosion that's incurred during high surf inundation or large tidal changes. Also with that, with the planting, we've been doing non-native invasive grass removal to help the prosperity of the natives that are being put in. In November of 2019, there was a sailing vessel that washed up in on Nahoopii Beach. One staff, myself and with an EOD escort, we went on shore to inspect and make sure the marine environment wasn't damaged or there was no leaching of chemicals from the vessel. Both were found to be negative. The vessel does, however, remain there, but again, there was no visual damage done to any surrounding coral reef or any leaking or deposit of fuel, oil, or any hazardous items from the vessel. And thirdly and lastly, in January of this year, we worked with a staff member, Tracy Mercer from NOAA's Monk Seal Research Program. She came and did a training with us, again, refreshing us on how to approach, identify, catalog, and collect data on all the monk seals that we find around Kaho'olawe, very frequently on the beaches on the west side of the island. She worked with us on how to tag and bleach the seals, renewing and updating our certifications to do so for the animals on Kaho'olawe specifically. Again, brief, that's all I have for now, but I'm sure if there are any questions that you may have, Mike would be more than glad to answer them for you. Thank you very much. Aloha.
We have any questions? Any questions from the commissioners?
We were also able to get Paul's answer to Suzanne's other questions. So.
Yeah, I spoke with Paul via radio. He's currently on island. Right now, we do not have a problem with Nile thrift. They are keeping an eye on the trees and everything, but right now they don't see any problem.
Great, thank you very much.
I know I got to cut down the Nile tree in front of my house because it's all infested.
I had one in my yard that the Oahu Invasive Species Committee found and took down because it was infested.
The last report we have is Terry. You're going to be giving a report on your museum science updates.
Hello, commissioners. I'm currently still working on our Institute of Museum and Library Services third grant, which is entitled Special Collections. With the advent of COVID, we've had to change our work schedules here in the office. So I've been doing some of the work at home as well as here in the office. Right now, at home, I am rehousing parts of the Navy collection, which means putting them in brand new containers, writing up information about that to input into our database. I am also currently still working on inputting and linking images from our original Living Library website to our new database, which will eventually be published via our website that's being hosted by Past Perfect. And right now, I've done about 700, I've rehoused about 700 items from our Navy collection, and am currently working on about 1,200 images of photos for the Past Perfect database.
Oh, Terry, I cleaned a storage container I found under my house, and I found Navy images from 1978. So I got to bring you all those things.
Oh, good. Well, it's a good thing we have that additional room.
Yeah.
Thanks, Terry. And Mike and the rest of the staff. I know it takes a lot of creativity and, a lot of resourcefulness to keep us pushing through in kind of these challenging times. Even we had the fire. We have our social distancing, our health issue, challenges, and then we have our, our fiscal and planning challenges as well. But I think, when we see the kind of support for the grants that come in, we know other partners out there, they believe in what we're doing on island to restore the kino of Kanaloa. And it takes a lot of hard work on the staff to get us there. I know the rest of the commission feels that way too. Okay, Mike, what else we got? Can we move along?
That's it. We have nothing else. We're done.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
I move for adjournment.
Agreed. So our KIRC meeting, September 21st, is adjourned.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Mahalo.
We survived it.
Thanks,
Not
everybody.
bad.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
Good job.
Okay, aloha. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, all.
Okay, thanks. Hey, Maggie, you want to stay on so I can talk to you?
Mike, you want me to stay on?
No. I just got some admin stuff to deal with.
Okay, good. Manny, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for jumping in.
Yeah. Hey, you want to disconnect everybody else?
Give me 1 second. I have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I was going to call you anyway, so we're on Zoom. We can just talk now.
Yeah, here we go. Put.
And Matt's over there, so I can see if he's got anything updated.
Grant. He's probably not paying attention. That's why he's not hanging up yet.
Okay.
Turn him off. Hold on.
Okay.
Yes, remove Grant. He cannot come back.
Okay, so you guys just talked to DOH? Are they writing the contract?
Yes, it was between like the last access and this access. We did a call or something, and they're just letting us know, like, yep, it's still October. We're still waiting. They haven't exchanged.
October's like next week.
Yeah, I know. So, next week. I'll have Lyman guys set up a call as soon as they get back.
Yeah, because I mean, we can't. The position. I don't know this position thing if it's even going to work.
Yeah.
So we'll have to figure that out because it'll be funded. It'll be trust funded. It'll have to be trust funded, and then we get reimbursement for the trust for it. So I'll have to ask for authorization to, well, we have to create the position. Well, we have to fund it. We have to fund it and establish it and all that stuff. We have the write-up for it. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's just going to take us some time because we have, with this new budget thing, we got to go all the way through BNF and pretty high to get positions nowadays. It's not as easy as it was like when we first thought up the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder,
Okay.
I don't know if we can, but I wonder if it's worth asking them if we can reallocate that to base camp costs instead, but it might be too late, right? If they have to like approve budget and stuff.
I don't know. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, ball guys probably want the body, but if we get these, interns, then we
Yeah.
really don't need the bodies. Yeah.
We're gonna have up to 4 bodies, and then they're
Yeah.
gonna have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and that's the question we're gonna have to deal with separation on the boat and everything.
Yeah.
And the volunteer number because I heard they were kind of concerned about having 8 people on the boat.
Also, because the restoration staff's not going out over the weekend right now too, so we're sending out 4 staff members with 8 volunteers on a Monday as opposed to 2 staff members. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That and I guess that's about it. That's the only thing I really wanted to ask about. I was like where are we? Because that is the only thing that is like pretty much for sure we're going to get, and then we'll make an adjustment to our budget for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey,
Well,
Matt.
So there's another
Matt's
water.
walking out the door. You want to grab Matt? Matt, you got anything for me?
No, expect a packet of P cards coming. Oh, if you can look over the PO stuff that I sent you, I can resend it. This is our idea to encumber.
You sent me things to sign digitally?
This is what we're planning to see how we can use the remaining quarter one.
Oh yeah. It's fine. I looked at it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.